This is Tracy Hales-Vess with Right on Four Corners. Today I have the privilege of talking to Dr. Vicky Ramakka about her book, The Cactus Plot: Murder in the High Desert. Good morning, Vicky.
Good morning, Tracy, and thank you for having me today.
Thanks for coming into the studio to talk about The Cactus Plot.
Sure, glad to.
I really enjoyed the book.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, there's so many questions I have for you. And the
Okay.
Cactus Plot has so much science behind it.
Right.
And I know that you have advanced degrees, but they're in academia.
Well, yes, in a way. My bachelor's was conservation education, which was more than half science courses back at Cornell University, very few in education. And it's just something that always interests me, anything in science, but especially natural sciences. And I love to be outdoors. I like to hike. I grew up on a farm in upstate New York and traipsed after my parents all the time, collecting plants, and they knew how to use slippery elm. And when I was a little kid, we'd pick wild strawberries and take the dogs out. They liked strawberries too. And my mother always told the story of how her mother would give all the kids gum to chew because that was a real treat, so they wouldn't eat so many berries that we picked. So I've always been interested in the natural world.
It really shows that you've done some research with this book.
Absolutely, and which I really enjoy. I like learning, and that's my other hobby, is simply learning. So I know a lot about the plants and wildlife of this area, geology I always enjoy. To really get down to specifics, I certainly did do a lot of research to confirm what I was looking at.
Well, I tried to do research on the San Juan cactus. Is it such a thing?
I bet you didn't get anywhere,
I
did
couldn't
you?
find it, no.
None whatsoever. The book does feature San Juan cactus as an endangered species, an endangered cactus. And no, it does not exist. It represents a lot of the threats that are endangered cactus, endangered plants, both from development, from overuse, overcollection. It's a conglomeration of many aspects of cactus and native plants in general.
That's great. Well, before we go on, why don't you go ahead and give our listeners a little synopsis of the book?
Okay. The Cactus Plot is a murder mystery set on BLM land in northwest New Mexico. And a lot of parts of it will sound very familiar to people that live around this area. The main character is Millie Whitehall, and she's a botanist hired by BLM to survey endangered plants. Millie is new to the West. She grew up in New Jersey. This is her first trip west. And so she has to learn to drive the rough backcountry roads. When she's in a restaurant and somebody says red or green, she has to come up with the right answer for that. And at first, she does not know what that means. She gets to deal with a rattlesnake out at one of the cactus plots. And while she's out working on BLM land, she meets the various characters that are pretty common around in northwest New Mexico. She runs onto a cowboy, an oil and gas field hand, environmentalist, tourist, a Navajo biologist. And I made these characters to represent the different uses of public land. They all have different concerns and interests in the BLM land where they are, and they speak for their interests, and they represent the different uses that are sometimes conflicting uses of public land. So as the story plays out, 2 men are found dead on the BLM resource area, and autopsies show that plants are related to both deaths. So Millie figures out who is behind those murders because she knows about plant ecology. And it's a fun read, but it also covers a lot of the intricacies of what is happening on public land at this time.
It does, and I loved the characters. Millie's a great protagonist, but your cast of characters are so real. Like you said, the cowboy, the gas field hand, the foreigner, the foreign photographer.
Well, they are real. I've run onto all of these people.
And then the old broad's public land Bilba.
Yeah, that's that's actually modeled after the Great Old Broads for Wilderness.
Oh.
And that is a national group that's based in Durango, Colorado, actually.
Oh, wow.
Founded by a group of women who were out hiking in the wilderness in Utah, actually. And they heard a quote by Orrin Hatch that why do we need to not allow travel and motorized travel in wilderness areas? They had just been out hiking and backpacking in wilderness areas, and they were quite offended that the implication that older people don't enjoy the outdoors like everybody else. And so they founded that, and it's coming up on its 30th anniversary, actually.
Oh, my.
So it's based on an actual group.
That's great. The old broads for public land. Yes. And Millie is very smart, very intelligent, and very young, and a little bit naive, like you said, about the area here.
And inexperienced in
right. But
living in this area.
She's got the smarts, but she doesn't have the experience yet.
Right. And she makes some mistakes along the way, gets in trouble a few times,
Right.
and some of these characters help her out.
That's right. I enjoyed Ben too. Ben is the Navajo young man who showed her around some of the Navajo country and ceremonies.
Right. He also is very well educated and has a broad view of the world. I wanted to have a Native American character who was very modern, not the usual stereotypical character. And so he is a graduate of wildlife program working on his master's, and but his family is quite traditional. So a couple of the chapters he takes Millie to the Shiprock flea market one weekend, another weekend up to a sheep camp up in the Chusca Mountains.
Right.
And I've done all those things too.
I can tell by your descriptions of them.
Right.
Yeah, the book really captured me. I was right there with it. And I found Wellstown very familiar.
Yes. People that live in Farmington might find Wellstown very familiar.
That's right.
I did want to make it fictional because, in a way, all of these characters and the situations are very real, but I didn't want anybody to absolutely connect this person to that person.
Exactly. It's fiction.
It's fiction.
Good. You will be signing the book at Amy's Bookcase.
That's right. I believe on the 19th or
on
November.
The 23rd.
I'm glad you got that date.
That's right.
I didn't have it.
What time will you be there?
11 to 12:30.
Great.
And Amy kindly is carrying the books now and invited me to do a signing there, which I appreciate.
Absolutely. Well, that'll be great. Is there a few passages you'd like to read for us?
Okay. I knew you would ask,
Uh-huh.
so I did prepare something.
Good.
This is a scene that takes place about a third of the way through the book. And just prior to this, Millie, the botanist, and Wirt, the BLM manager, were out checking on a plot of endangered cactus when they saw a truck run off the road. They found a retired BLM botanist in the truck, dead behind the wheel. This scene takes place back when they're back in the BLM office. This is Chapter 18, Word Spreads. Wirt, the area manager, motioned Millie to the chair in front of his desk. Sorry you had to go through that, Millie, seeing Herb like that. 2 men found dead on the Pinion Resource area, within 2 months of each other. In all my career, nothing that crazy has ever happened. Wirt's voice trailed off. He was probably reliving the death scene, just as she had, over and over. That's just not something a seasonal should have to deal with. You doing okay? Millie put on a good front and told Wirt she was staying busy with plant inventories. Wirt scanned her vase and nodded. There's something else I called you in here for. He tapped a thick report in front of him. There may be a problem about that new plot of San Juan cactus you found. This is an application for permit to drill, a natural gas well in the same location. Just preparing the site prior to drilling would pretty much take out that whole plot. What do you mean, take out? Millie demanded. According to the site diagram, the access road goes across the lower end of where the cactus are, and the well pad itself is 30 yards further up the slope. Hoping the thumping in her heart wasn't as loud as it sounded to her, Millie gulped and said, That can't happen. A road there could destroy the whole colony. Disturbance anywhere around there could impact soil moisture. We don't know enough about San Juan cactus ecology to know what a change in drainage might do. That can't happen. Millie knew her voice was rising. Hold on, Millie. Hold on. It's a federally listed endangered species. We can't let this APD go through the way it is. There may be avenues for mitigation, rerouting the access road, moving the whole drill site if necessary. Millie sat motionless, glaring at the area manager. Wirt shuffled his chair back a few inches. I'll need some time. This APD sits on my desk until I've talked to the company myself. They aren't going to like the idea of delaying drilling for a little cactus you can hardly see. They're going to raise holy hell. Millie shook her head, wanting this to all go away. This couldn't happen to her cactus. Wirt was rubbing a hand over his eyes. Millie, I'm walking a tightrope here. There's likely to be some political pushback on this. I need to alert the BLM state office to expect a call from a legislator or two. Look, I admire your passion for protecting the resource. You're the right person for this job. He paused, seeming to work out strategies in his mind. Meanwhile, keep the location to yourself. Gather any information available on habitat requirements for San Juan cactus. Based on what information you put together, we can put a no surface occupancy stipulation on that area. An NSO prevents disturbance on the least surface to protect special values. Doesn't mean a company couldn't still use directional drilling to tap gas or oil beneath the surface. Millie wasn't convinced. Development plans tended to only gain momentum, regardless of words on a paper. She shuddered at the thought of that quiet patch of ground supporting these unique cactus turned into a bald, lifeless well pad. That cannot happen.
The San Juan cactus that Millie discovered, you made that up.
Not actually.
Okay.
There is, in fact, a very rare cactus that exists only in San Juan County, almost to the Colorado border.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you kind of drive up into Colorado and back and around. It was only in this one area. It's very, very small, just above the surface. It is in a protected area. There's stories about how it was originally found.
Oh.
And it was collected pretty heavily when it was first found, and that was a real problem because so far it's only been found pretty much in that area.
Oh.
It's been collected and grown domestically there so that a few more exist around, but if something happened to that one area, that's a species that could be gone forever.
Wow. So, did you learn about this cactus, or did you find Millie first? Which came first, the cactus of the story or Millie?
Oh, I I knew about that cactus and many other. I just like cactus, all kinds of cactus.
You're in the right area for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So how did Millie come about? Where did she come from?
Oh, well, I myself am from the East and had kind of learned about driving these kinds of roads and some of the field techniques, field etiquette. As if you meet another truck on a scrawny little rough road, the person coming downhill has right of way.
Right.
That's what I call backcountry etiquette.
That's right.
You just need to know those kinds of things. And have learned those along the way. A lot from my husband, who's done years of field work with the BLM. He's retired from BLM also. And so there was a lot to learn about moving to New Mexico, a whole different area. I've lived in several other western states also, but that allows looking at this unusual area of northwest New Mexico, an oil and gas area, undoubtedly, with new eyes. And that's what my publisher-editor really liked about it. It was, we're looking at New Mexico through a new person's eyes.
Right.
And that allows talking a lot about the quirkiness. So there's a lot to learn about the culture of New Mexico when you first move here.
Right. Very good. Well, it's very believable. Millie's a great character.
Great.
Now, I know that you're also a photographer. Did you take the photograph on the front?
No, my husband took that. Jim Ramakka took that. And there is a petroglyph on the boulder that appears on the cover. And it is on a canyon that enters into the Largo Canyon. I am a site steward, a volunteer site steward for the Salmon Ruins Archaeological Center. And that's a volunteer program where we go out occasionally, check on either ruins or rock art sites.
Oh.
And so that's an area that I go out to at least a couple times a year.
The picture took me right to the story.
And the claret cup cactus, of course, that's probably the most beautiful cactus that we find around here. And that's front and center of the cover.
It is. Now, I know that you've been writing forever, but usually you write nonfiction.
That's right. I guess way back in college, I learned a lot of technical writing, formal writing, very, very formal at that time. If you were doing any scientific papers, it was all passive voice.
Right.
No personalization, no emotional input at all. And then through my academic career of managing programs, mainly administration, needed to learn to write short and concise. People don't have time to read very much, so I've done a lot of reports and writing. When I retired, it's just become just plain fun to write fiction.
Yes.
Use pretty words and make up stuff. I've always liked to make up stories, and it's great fun to make up all these scenes.
So how does the technical writing and the academic writing inform your fiction writing?
Well, I guess I did a lot of research, and I know how to do research. And one very important book that I want to mention is the flora of San Juan Basin, the San Juan River Basin, which was actually compiled by Ken Heil, Linda Reeves, a couple other individuals, Arnold Clifford, under the auspices of San Juan College. It's collected and researched here. And it's a huge, beautiful book that is a taxonomy guide for all the plants in the San Juan River Basin. And it's a massive publication and very accurate. And I pulled a lot of information out of that on yucca plants and what grows there, where, and elevations and so on. Very useful reference. So kudos to Ken Heil and
That's right.
Linda Reeves, yes.
Right. names I recognize. So you also have a web presence at Voices for Biodiversity.
Oh my goodness, you've done some research.
Yes.
I did submit an article on a book that I had read. That's a book review for that.
Very interesting.
And I've put in a lot of magazine articles since I've retired in different regional, national magazines. And I just run on to interesting people doing interesting things. And I like to talk to them. And people will just start talking on and on about their interests. I learn from them and write up what they say, and have published in a number of magazine articles.
So, in the Cactus plot, it leaves the ending open. Do you think we'll see Millie again?
Yes.
Oh, good.
I hope so. I hope so. I have some ideas rolling around in my head that she comes back, and with a little more emphasis on the archaeology of this area.
Oh.
It will cover, start with some of the homesteaders, the 1800s homesteaders in Largo Canyon.
Oh, good. Good. I was hoping we'd see her again. How long did it take you to write the Cactus plot?
Well, I kind of picked at it for maybe 3 or 4 years. I had a lot of scenes rolling around in my head, and they were fun to write. The being caught in the storm and running onto the cowboy, and so on. Various scenes, I had all of those. And then it took me maybe a year to sit down and string them together. It was much easier writing different scenes, different situations, but to put them in sequence and make them follow one to another, maybe a year to do that. And then several people have looked it over and edited it, which I appreciate. Linda Reeves won because she's a PhD botanist, and she caught some things. My friend Elaine Benelli, director of San Juan College West, she looked it over for cultural content, told me a whole lot more on how to make kneel-down bread. She caught some things there, and so various people have helped me edit it along the way.
Writing a book is much more than just a sole occupation, isn't it?
It's kind of obsessive to really get it together and put it together.
Yes.
Takes kind of thinking about it 24 hours a day, and the characters in there become your friends or enemies, and you know them very well by the time you finish a book.
One thing I like about your characters, your many characters, is that many of them are not who they appear to be.
Yes. One thing I kind of like about it, one of my neighbors is just the nicest guy, and he has worked in the oil and gas field for his whole career, knows a lot about that, but just a really nice guy, and he represents kind of the oil and gas developing aspect. And Millie is quite a protectionist, environmentalist, and they need to really get along way out in the field, and they become pretty good friends, and he helps her out. And she realizes it's not all us against them.
Right.
It's not black and white on resource development and uses. There's a lot of gray areas and overlaps, and we all must work with those. And then another character, about halfway through the book, I needed another character to come in, but I thought I had too many, and I just didn't want to come up with a whole nother character that late in the book. And so one of the earlier ones told me, well, that's me. That's me.
Great.
I've been undercover all this time, and you didn't know it. So let me step forward and play that role, because I want to.
I love that.
It was just surprising. All of a sudden, this new character stepped forth and took on a different role.
I like that.
Pretty amazing.
It's amazing how the characters become...
It's fun.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
It is. So you will be signing the book at Amy's.
Right. and it's available there now. Maria's Bookstore in Durango also has it. I will be meeting with the Durango chapter of the Great Old Broads in sometime next couple months at one of their monthly meetings. It's available on Amazon. Search The Cactus Plot or my name, Vicky Ramakka. It's also by ebook.
And you spell your last name Ramakka.
Right. So it's available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's website, and at local bookstores.
And I know that one thing that my listeners are interested in is the writing process. What is yours?
I just kind of poke things in my head as I go along, and after a while they coalesce and come out whole. It's amazing. Little facts and so on assemble themselves in my mind and become a scene. I also jot down. I keep a folder on my computer, desktop, all the time. If I hear a interesting name or expression, I'll just jot it in there. So I have pages and pages of notes on my computer that after a while, again, I pull out of. I heard a good name the other day, Buzzy. I thought that was just a cool name, so I put that in my notes, and
I'll
have to use that sometime.
Yes.
And I just, when I see a nice sentence in a book or an interesting quote, I jot that down and put it in a document on my desktop. It keeps rolling along that way.
That's great. Do you write every day?
No, not at all. They say you should. But I'm retired and I don't listen to that anymore at all.
Good. You got to do what works for you.
It's a hobby and a pleasure, and I intend to keep it that way. So I very much enjoy writing. When I do sit down to write, time disappears, and it may be hours later that I look up and until my cat comes in and says it's time for supper. And
I like that Millie has a cat friend.
Yes, got to have a cat in my books. They're good helpers, good friends of mine, and they keep me on track. So I really do enjoy writing and imagining stories, real or fictional. And I do it when the spirit moves me.
Very good. Well, I did enjoy The Cactus Plot, Murder in the High Desert, loved your characters. And
thank you.
I encourage everybody to go and meet you and ask more questions at the book signing.
November 23rd, you're telling me.
Right.
That's a Saturday here. Yes, I will be there and different places around. Look forward to visiting with people about some of the characters, if they know these characters when they run onto them out driving around. And when I do go out to my site steward area, which is way out off Largo Canyon, there's never been a time that if I was there with just my friend who goes out with me, Luann Crow, that an oil and gas worker didn't stop and make sure we were okay. So that's really true how it goes on out there.
Yes.
They take care of each other.
Thank you very much for coming into the studio and for writing the book.
Thank you for having me very much.
And that was Vicky Ramakka talking about her book, The Cactus Plot, Murder in the High Desert. This is Tracy Hales-Vass with Right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico.